Hi, in this video I am very proud to release the story of the famous Indian mathematician genius C.T. Rajagopal. He was an Indian mathematician who worked on three main areas, namely sequences, series, summability, functions of a complex variable, and history of medieval Kerala mathematics. He was ex-director of Ramanujam Institute for Advanced Studies in Mathematics, University of Madras. Professor C.T. Rajagopal, he was the ex-director of Ramanujam Institute for Advanced Study in Mathematics, University of Madras. His proud student was Professor M.S. Rangachari, ex-director of the same institute. I am Dr. A. Sridhar, ex-Vice Chancellor of Dr. K. N. Modi University, was a PhD student of Professor M.S. Rangachari. So, I take the privilege of releasing this video to give respect for Professor C.T. Rajagopal under the great guidance of Professor M.S. Rangachari. C.T. Rajagopal's parents were Kadamattu Thiruvengadacharlu and Padmama. His father worked in the revenue department of Madras Street. C.T. Rajagopal, normally he was called CTR or Raju. He had two younger brothers and one sister, the youngest of four siblings. Rajagopal's eldest brother was C.T. Venugopal. His period was 1907 to 1972. Rajagopal was educated in Madras, now in Chennai, India, where he attended the Hindu high school. The school began in 1860 with only two boys in Triplicane area of Madras. Later on, it was merged with Hindu High School, which was adopted in 1897 after a large new building was constructed. Rajagopal excelled in his studies at the school, and after his schooling was complete, he passed the matriculation exam at Madras Presidency College in 1919. This college, founded in 1840, became part of the University of Madras when it was founded in 1857. Rajagopal first followed the intermediate course and passed the intermediate examination in 1921 with high marks. The same year, he began his study of BA Honours Mathematics course, but illness meant that he had to postpone taking the final exam till 1925. He graduated in 1925 from the Madras Presidency College with first-class honours in mathematics. The professor of mathematics at Madras Presidency College, when Rajagopal studied there, was Mr. K. Ananda Rao, 1893 to 1966, was an important influence on Rajagopal's mathematical development. Ananda Rao had studied at the University of Cambridge under a very famous mathematician, namely G.H. Hardy. G.H. Hardy, who wrote on 26 March 1918 on K. Rao, had spent the last year in mathematical research undertaken in part under my guidance. Some of his results are contained in an essay which obtained the Smith Prize this year, and he has done other valuable work which will no doubt be published in due course. This was a letter written by J.H. Hardy on the merits of Mr. K. Rao. Ananda Rao was appointed Professor of Mathematics at Madras Presidency College in July 1919, the year in which Rajagopal began his studies at the college. M.S. Rangachari writes about Rajagopal's undergraduate studies. Anandarao, in the year that she graduated, 1915, Rajagopal married Rukmani. Their only son was C.R. Srinivasan. So this is the family of the mathematics genius, Professor C.D. Rajagopal. Rajagopal spent over a year in clerical service at the Madras Accountant General's office and another year, 1930 to 31, teaching in Annamala University. This university had only been founded in 1929. From 1931 to 1951, he taught in the Madras Christian College. Here he gained an outstanding reputation as a teacher of classical analysis. In fact, his first paper, an integral test for the convergence of a series of positive terms, was published in the Mathematics Student. This journal of the Indian Mathematical Society had been founded in 1933 and was for many years publishing material which promoted the teaching of mathematics. Rajagopal's first research level publications appeared in 1937. In 1951, Rajagopal was persuaded to join the Ramanujan Institute of Mathematics by Thirukanapuram Vijayaraghavan, who was the first director of the institute, which had been founded in 1950 by Sir Rajagopal Chettiar, an industrialist, and was showing much interest in education. 4 years later, after the death of Vijayaraghavan, Rajagopal became the director of the Ramanujan Institute for Advanced Study in Mathematics. This only happened after the leading mathematicians like Andrew Bell, Ralph Bose, and Anthony Zygmunt had been consulted and advised on Rajagopal's appointment. Rajagopal's task as director was, however, a very difficult one. The institute passed through many crises and was often threatened with a closure. That it survived those gloomy and agonizing days was as much due to the high quality of mathematical activity generated by Rajagopal as it was to the indefatigable persistence, faith, and hope which with events on representing its cast to the authorities for the survival of Ramanujan Institute for Advanced Study in Mathematics. When the fate of the institute hung on the balance, the intervention by the famous astrophysicist Professor S. Chandrasekhar made then the Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru make a recurring grant to the institute and transfer its management to the University of Madras. The institute retained its separate identity till 1967, when it became enlarged with the University Department of Mathematics merging with it to become the Ramanujan Institute for Advanced Study in Mathematics. Rajagopal's contribution to the institute, attaining the supreme position as one of the most important centers of mathematical research in India, was immeasurable. Under the able guidance of Professor C.T. Rajagopal, the institute gained supreme position. In 1967, Rajagopal reached retirement age, but his services were extended so that he could continue as a director of the extended institute. This is all because of the meritorious contribution of Professor C.T. Rajagopal to the institute's development. He finally retired from the institute in June 1969, but continued his research work with a small financial assistance through the institute. It is no exaggeration to say that the institute, as it stands today, is a monument to the unremitting efforts of Rajagopal, as it is to the memory of Srinivasa Ramanujan. So great work was done by Professor C.T. Rajagopal for standing of this institute as a great research institute internationally today. It is also true that Ramanujan Institute is finding difficult to face with courage the assessment of its achievements because of the void created by Rajagopal's retirement. The research work of the institute was during Rajagopal's time so productive and significant that his passing away has created a vacuum in the country among active odd analysis, of whom he was perhaps the last. Rajagopal studied sequences, series, summability. He published 89 papers in this area, generalizing and unifying Tauberian theorems. He also studied functions of a complex variable, giving an analog of a theorem of Edmund Langew on partial sums of Fourier series. In several papers, he studied the relation between the growth of the mean values of an entire function and that of its Dirichlet series. Special topic of interest. A final topic to interest him was the history of medieval Indian mathematics. He contributed a lot in this particular domain with a special interest. Rajagopal took upon himself the task of establishing, to the satisfaction of mathematicians and mathematical historians, that the fundamentals of mathematical analysis were discovered and used in Kerala at least 2 centuries before Newton and Leibniz. He was assisted in this task by the late Prince Ramavarma of Cochin and his own students. Thus, Professor C.T. Rajagopal did great work. He showed that the series for tan inverse of x discovered by Gregory and those for sin x and cos x discovered by Newton were known to the Hindus 150 years earlier. He identified the Hindu mathematician Madhava as the first discoverer of these series. D.T. Whiteside, in his Mathematical Papers of Isaac Newton, Cambridge, 1968. These series for sine and cosine, which here appear for the first time in a European manuscript, had, as we now know, already been displayed in a 1639 Malayalam compendium, the Yuktabhasha, which itself professes to be based on an early 16th century Sanskrit original, perhaps the work of the little known Hindu mathematician Nilakantha. Rajagopal is described as follows. Rajagopal was a teacher par excellence and a reliable and inspiring research guide. No words can describe his modesty, rational thinking, and interest in psychic studies were two attributes which he imbibed with pride from his teacher Ananda Rao. After he retired, Rajagopal continued to undertake research both on summability and on medieval Kerala mathematics. In fact, he published 18 papers in the 9 years of his retirement. He died of a massive heart attack and without pain in April 1978. So it was a great loss in the mathematician's domain. Many who knew C.D. Rajagopal could not believe that he was no more on 25th April 1978. He was so healthy and was so regular in habits, and nobody could believe the demise of the great professor. The end was painless, and his wife, who was by his side, could not believe that he had left her. A medieval man was called by her when her beloved husband stopped responding to her enquiries, declared him to have like this. M.S. Rangachari, the author of several of his biographies listed in the references below, was Professor Rajagopal's student, then Rajagopal's colleague, and then he was a collaborator. He writes a personal tribute in which we quote a part of it. Professor M.S. Rangachari says Rajagopal was a teacher par excellence at any level, graduate, postgraduate, or advanced. His teaching was marked by very detailed treatment of the topic, be it either real or complex analysis or statics or dynamics. It did only adhere to the main text prescribed for the topic, but covered additional ground, throwing light on the teacher's original study of the topic. Thus, he catered very well to the average students also. The author cannot forget the day when he was advised by Rajagopal to work on the summability methods, revising his own earlier suggestion to work in the theory of groups. It was the day when the author could generalize Rajagopal's results relating to knowledge summability. On the other hand, He was a very good collaborator who never distinguished his own contribution in a joint work from that of others. Quote, a few were dedicated workers in other fields and who lacked support in their initial career were encouraged by Rajagopal. One such professor, K. Ramachandra, while unveiling the portrait of Rajagopal in the Ramanujan Institute, could not suppress his emotion when he remembered the encouragement given to him by Rajagopal. Such a wonderful human being, a great soul, Professor C.D. Rajagopal. In the present day world of changing fashions in work and mathematics, Rajagopal never swerved from the principles of his revered teacher Ananda Rao to work in themes dear to us without caring for fads or fashions and to leave the assessment of the work to posterity. Rajagopal wrote well, whether it was his mathematical papers or his articles on Christianity or any other studies or reviews or notices. He was very careful in the choice of idiom and of precise expression. Each one of the many letters he wrote to the author is a piece of literature. Rajagopal was a believer in rational thinking. He did not take interest in religious rituals, but at the same time, he did not discourage others believing in them. During India's freedom struggle, he demonstrated his nationalism by always wearing khadi in response to the call of Mahatma Gandhi. About philosophy, unlike his friend Vijayaraghavan, he felt that everyone should have his own philosophy. Vijayaraghavan's personal discussions with him about Vishnuveda philosophy and the Tamil songs of the Vaishnavite saints did not impress him. He more recently used to tell the author that he wished Vijayaraghavan were alive to discuss these matters with the author. On the other hand, Rajagopal believed in the scientific investigation of the so-called supernormal and superhuman. Rajagopal believed in the scientific investigation of the so-called supernormal and superhuman phenomena. He was quite proud of his views in this aspect, what goes by the name of the psychical research, and more particularly the rebirth of the soul, and was happy that Srinivasa Ramanujan and Ananda Rao too had the same belief. Rajagopal was an extraordinary gentleman. Nobody knowing him closely has ever heard him raising his voice. If he ever became angry, it was only for the defense of his colleagues and students. Rajagopals were highly hospitable. Hospitality by Rukmani Rajagopal, Mrs. Rukmani Rajagopal, was wonderful. The author and some of his colleagues cannot forget those days while spending time at home. There was always a stream of visitors in his house at Tambram, and the hospitality was given by his wife. Professor C.T. Rajagopal's students, very close student is Professor M.S. Rangachari, ex-director of Ramanujan Institute, University of Madras, and his student is myself, Dr. A. Sridhar, ex-Vice Chancellor of Dr. K. N. Modi University. While reading the content about Professor C.T. Rajagopal, if I have committed some kind of any mistake in pronunciation, kindly bear with me since I have some throat problem due to my own open heart surgery. Have a great day with this wonderful story of Professor C.T. Rajagopal, a genius in mathematics. Thank you very much.